Hello, NAFI members and flight instructors. This is John Nee, House Director of Program Development for the National Association of Flight Instructors. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of the NAFI More Right Rudder podcast, the podcast for flight instructors on the go. And today's actually a special day because I have a friend of mine here, and we're going to talk to my alma mater. So today's topic is going to be collegiate aviation. And my guest today is a faculty specialist with Western Michigan University's College of Aviation. He's a CFII and MEI ATP, three-time NAFI master, and he also has his MBA with the university. Kyle Jehnzen. Kyle, welcome.
Thanks, John. I'm happy to be here and happy to be back involved with NAFI.
Yeah. If for those that don't know, if you were lucky enough to come by Sun and Fun or AirVenture, this would have been maybe 6 years ago?
Yeah, probably around 2014, 15 type time frame. I started here at Western full time in 2016, so it would have been before that.
Okay, it's hard to believe it's been that long, but if you were around back then and went to the shows, you would have found Kyle helping us out at both AirVenture and Sun and Fun. So we had a few weeks where we stole him away from the university, and we tried to steal him completely, and he said no, but that's all right. So Kyle, we go back to our initial flight instruction days. I had done a little bit outside of the university, but the university welcomed me back, and you and I got to meet, and we were in initial standardization class at Western for being a CFI, and we worked side by side for a couple of years there. That was again also hard to believe that it's been as long as it has.
Yeah, I have a hard time with a lot of the part-time instructors down here remembering who's been here at what points, because when somebody tells me a date like we were just talking about with Sun and Fun and AirVenture, it is hard to believe it was that long ago.
Yeah, somehow we're getting of that age. I try not to think about it. But for those that don't know you, Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your role at Western.
So as you said, I'm a faculty specialist here, and basically what that means is at the chair's disposal, they can put me wherever they want, whether that's mostly on the flight line or in the classroom or working on curricular changes. It's totally up to them, and I kind of just go where I'm needed. Over the last few years, that has transitioned more into the classroom and curricular changes. And away from some of the flight line stuff. I still do a number of 141 checks every semester. In the summer months, I do a lot of flying, kind of the specialized instructors, some MEI, CFI initial type things. But for the most part, it's become classroom work. And I've taught intro to aerodynamics, crew resource management, aviation meteorology, aviation safety, corporate aviation management. I'm sure I'm missing global navigation. That's the one I do every semester. Advanced aerodynamics. So I'm on a lot of classroom work over these semesters, especially in the fall and the spring. And so that's kind of how the job has evolved for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you spent a lot of time as a very active instructor. And I think you and I became check instructors for Western probably about the same time. And kind of worked your way up from there, and now you're molding new minds in the classroom. So a little bit
that's right.
Sounds like you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, they initially, obviously, I had started part-time. As you mentioned, we were in the same hiring class there, and that did ultimately transition into a full-time position, not with the College of Aviation on campus, actually, but with the extended university programs. And so I got involved in a lot of online class development and things like that, helping some of our subject matter experts here put their classes online and become more technologically aware, I suppose is a good way to put it. And then, so that kind of started taking away from a little bit of the flying side of things. But in that meantime, as I was still part-time, started flying a Part 91 citation, still do that from time to time. And then from there, after the extended university program appointment kind of expired, the College of Aviation decided to hire me on full time. And that's when I really started teaching classes. That would have been in 2016. And so it's evolved into a lot of different things for me now. And over the last few weeks, it's been a lot of curricular stuff, talking to your people like you. And, we've had a few good discussions over the last few months about curriculum, and people that I've, gone through training with and had instructed with, that are now at the airlines. I've got former students that are captains now, so that's kind of hard to believe. Yeah. But got a lot of good industry contacts to help with that curricular design, what the industry wants, what the industry is seeing, and then we're fortunate enough to be able to make those changes here and give the students all the knowledge and tools they need to go out into the industry and be successful.
Very cool. So I brought you in today. Obviously, we want to talk about collegiate aviation, but I think we've got sort of three different plans to chat about. And I think the first is because we know that not just flight instructors listen to this podcast. We've got pilots, we've got prospective pilots. So I think the three things we want to cover today real quick would be, what does it mean to go into a collegiate program as a prospective pilot or a pilot in training? The second would be being a flight instructor for a collegiate program, and sort of the differences between what the collegiate program looks like compared to some of the other avenues of training out there. And then, of course, what does it look like to, jump from the collegiate program to some of the places you see some of your students going. So let's start off with the collegiate program coming from a pilot or prospective pilot. What are the things that somebody should be looking for in a program if they don't really know much about aviation?
The first thing they want to look for is an accreditation board that is actually holding that program, whether it's collegiate or not, to a set standard, and kind of understand that standard. We're certified by ABI, the Aviation Accreditation Board. I can't even tell you what it stands for, to tell you the truth, but I am very familiar with their charges, and all of our class structure is designed to meet those charges. Now, this isn't just a board of people that have decided they want to volunteer for something and give their time up. These are industry professionals, UPS captains, corporate managers, airline captains, that kind of thing, that serve on this accreditation board, that come to our program every 5 years and say, yes, this program is worthy of our stamp of approval. And it's a very rigorous program, or a very rigorous review that we go through every 5 years. So that's one of the first things I would suggest to somebody as they look for a program. What is the accreditation standard? Because then you get a good look at what you can expect from that program, what kind of professionalism and what kind of goals and outcomes you can expect from that program. The second thing I would suggest looking at is beyond just the aviation side. We as a College of Aviation actually issue a Bachelor's of Science degree upon graduation. So we're not wholly 100% always delivering aviation classes. We expect that student to come out as a well-rounded individual. There's physics classes, there's math classes. That might seem unappealing to some, but I will tell you that it does make you a well-rounded student. I've seen it from some of these students that have come out recently that advance through. Matter of fact, we just had one of our management and operations students named to the NBA 40 under 40 list. I think he graduated 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
So these are well-rounded individuals that are coming out of our program. And, I think that's something that somebody shopping a perspective into aviation, if you will, that's something they need to look at. Is it strictly aviation, or does it turn you into a well-rounded individual as you go out there? And as well as I do, what a high value people put on that, whether it's at the airlines or whether it's at a corporate department. They put a high value on that. They want to be around you. It's a certainly an addition to your credentials.
So then, when I start looking at, okay, I want to become a pilot, and I start looking at all the options out there, and I think that they all have value. So I don't want to discourage anybody from picking one route over another per se. But what would be an increased reason why you might choose a program like Western Michigan University over another program or a Part 61 school?
Well, you're exactly right. I wouldn't disparage any of the routes because it's got to suit the individual. Somebody might have just listened to what I said about being a well-rounded individual and say, that's not for me. I cannot stand being in a classroom. You know, I want to get my ratings and get to a regional airline. That's all I want to do. You know, to each their own in that sense. But to kind of say why go the 141 route or the collegiate route, I should say, over the other routes. Again, it's each their own. However, we do have a number of benefits, and one is kind of a tangible benefit in that you only require 1,000 hours to get that restricted ATP certificate. Airlines are hiring people out of our program, our flight instructors, at about 960 hours, and they'll top them off with the other 40 in the sim as they go through their standardization training. So as opposed to the 1,500 hours required from, say, a Part 61 applicant for the ATP certificate, we're down to 1,000 hours because you've completed a 4-year program like ours.
So that's the definition of a restricted, right? Is there
correct?
Is there more to the story there?
You mean from what are they restricted on doing?
Just in case somebody doesn't know what a restricted ATP is.
So yeah, really the restricted ATP is just a reduction in that hour minimum. It does restrict you from serving as captain in some 121 operations and 135 operations, and even there's some subparts of Part 91 that you could get into that have requirements for the restricted ATP, but it basically just gets you into that bigger, faster airplane a little bit quicker.
So that's a huge benefit.
Big benefit. 500 hours, most of us as instructors, especially in Michigan, this close to Lake Michigan, know how valuable 500-hour reduction would be.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'll say about the collegiate versus Part 61 or some of the other 141 training programs is you do get that college life, and I'm not saying it's an Animal House situation or anything like that, because you and I discussed it the other day. Our students are really held to a high standard here. But it is, you're engaged in things on campus, and more pointedly, you're engaged in aviation events out here at the college. We have a beautiful new $25 million building we just put up in Battle Creek, and we have a lot of potential employers that come here on a daily basis. That's not an exaggeration. I could almost guarantee if I walk downstairs right now into the atrium, there would be a potential employer set up at a table there, either taking resumes or talking about a specific career path. And so we do those things so regularly. We have the Aviation Outlook Day in April, and I would invite anybody to come to it. But we have generally in the vicinity of 40 to 50 employers come in, and they are doing job interviews right there, then and there, with most of our flight instructors and higher time students. So you've got these avenues, and not just the airlines. I don't want to make it sound like it's 100% geared only to airlines. Mm-hmm. It is a big part of what we do here. I would say it's probably 75 to 80% of our students go on to that type of flying. But we have, as you're well aware, corporate departments that come in quite frequently and come to this Aviation Outlook Day. Northern Jet and Corporate Eagle were here last year doing on-site interviews with some of our instructors. And so we've always got these kind of ins that you might not get elsewhere, between the scheduled events and then just non-scheduled events. We graduate so many people. I stay in touch as a faculty member with people like you, with all the students that I've sent to the airlines, with the people I graduated with that are now captains at the airlines. So there's just these different avenues for people to explore when they go through a collegiate program.
Hmm. Yeah, the networking opportunities. It's in aviation, as with so many other opportunities, it is all who you know in a lot of cases. And like you said, being able to graduate with some of these professionals or instruct some of these professionals, work with some of them, it feels like there's a Western Michigan alum just about everywhere.
There is,
And
yeah.
it's kind of cool to be able to know people in these different places. So that is of huge value.
The big benefit there is, I never went to the airlines. My background is mostly business airplane flying and flight instruction, but I graduated with I don't know how many people that have gone on to the airlines. I have trained I don't know how many students that are now captains and HR. Actually, one of my students was just here the other day performing interviews for a regional airline right down the hall
Wow.
from my office.
Full circle.
And so it's if I don't know how to go about something at the airlines, I usually call one of these people and just say, hey, I've got a student that's got a question. You got time to answer it? Absolutely, send them my way. So I think the collegiate just camaraderie, you know it as well as I do, the RSOs and the just being around each other. It's a tight knit group here.
Hmm.
I think that builds a lot of networks. And whether it's you're actually connected with somebody or you're connected with somebody that knows somebody, you've got this wealth of information out there available to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we switch gears to the next question, where we start talking about flight instruction, for somebody who's maybe already started their ratings, started flying, is there a cutoff? Does it get to a point where you've missed the boat to make the change and jump to a program like Western, or like can people go too far before making that decision?
Yeah, so as a student, my suggestion would be if you are looking at coming into a collegiate program or our collegiate program, I should be more specific because I'm not really 100% familiar with the rest of them, uh, that they don't go beyond the private pilot certificate. We have a transition course, and the further you go into your training outside of Western, the less eligibility you have for that restricted ATP certificate. If you come in with a private pilot certificate and do our transition course, which is 10 lessons long, meant to just familiarize you with our aircraft, with our operation, um, you roll right into the instrument training after that, and it's as if you did your private pilot here, basically. So yeah, there is a point where I highly suggest to students that, hey, if you want to, come into our program, don't go past that spot. That's not a hard, fast rule. It's not like it's restrictive, but then you start to lose some of that benefit, and you lose some of that time that you're around here.
Hmm.
I tell people that there's two schools of thought on this coming into the transition course or coming into our program with a private pilot certificate, in that we are a structured program. I mean, we're kind of transitioning the way we schedule and things, and so it is a structured. Here is your schedule. You need to be here to fly. We're training you. It's not a uh, tell us what your schedule is and we'll work on the weekends or whenever to figure out when you can fly. It is a structured thing. We've got limited resources in instructors and airplanes, and we've got this huge influx in students. So we are very structured in the way we do flight training, not just from the scheduling standpoint, but also the lessons. It's not a, oh, today we're just going to go out and work on steep turns for an hour.
Hmm.
Nope, here is the set of maneuvers that we're going to fly. Here's the mission profile, and this is what you're going to go do today. And you know it. I mean, you've got the whole training course outline available to you as soon as you start. So you're familiar with it as a student. So in coming in with the private pilot certificate, I've seen a couple of different things happen. One, they train in a smaller, slower, less technically advanced airplane. The Cirrus is a handful for a lot of new pilots. It's a little bit faster than most of your light GA airplanes. It is got more buttons to push, and that might be fun for some. It might be intimidating for others. So, I've seen it where students come in having flown a 150 and great training airplane, no doubt about it. But maybe they did it with somebody that wasn't as structured as us, and they have a really hard time transitioning in.
Mm-hmm.
I've had students that I've worked on this transition course with for 2 weeks. I've had some that have taken 6 months.
Oof.
So it's all about the individual, again, just like the option to choose your training outlet. But I have seen that transition course be difficult for people in coming to this more structured environment. So to back up to the original question, I guess, um, it will depend on the individual and really what they're flying and how they're operating in that private pilot certificate as to how successful they will be in this transition course.
Mm-hmm.
If you want this structure, I know I'm going to go to the airlines. This is the structure I want to be familiar with. We do a fantastic job training to that. And that sounds like a brag. I can back it up with 100% fact in a lot of the training that I've done at flight safety. There's instances where, I my first type training, they said, "Oh man, you must have some time as a crew, or you maybe have time in something bigger, faster." And again, this isn't a brag, but it is a statement of fact and a testament to our program that we do a good job training to that.
Yeah,
That might
I
be a
would
little
agree with
bit
that.
much for people right off the bat, and others might take to it really well. So it's about the individual at that point. But the hard, fast stop, I would say, don't come in with something past the private pilot certificate.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. It's hard to learn these things when you're coming in as a non-pilot because you really don't know what to look for. So that's a great piece of advice. So now switching gears, let's say that I'm a flight instructor. Let's say that I got my ratings in a different way and I didn't attend a place like Western, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're looking to build some hours, you're looking to build some time. 141 collegiate institutions have no shortage of students. So, it's a great place to go if you want to get a ton of time and you want to do it quickly. Is there what would I do? I don't have a familiarity with collegiate aviation, but I am a licensed or a certificated flight instructor. Could I come work for a place like Western?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just trained 2 new MEIs that it was last summer that I trained them that had come from Part 61 training all the way up through, didn't do the collegiate program. They had a 4-year degree, but not an aviation degree. I think one was business and one was engineering, but had flight instructor certificates all the way up through with the aim of being corporate pilots. And they are now up at Northern Jet, and they have done some great things for us. They were great instructors for us. They basically applied like everybody else. I didn't do their initial training here. I did their multi-engine instructor training, but the initial training is basically the addition of 3 or 4 flight lessons and then a couple of sims just to get familiarity with how we operate the aircraft, the equipment that we're on. And so it's really not that much of a difference in the application process.
So essentially, as long as you meet the qualifications, you could apply and you could hopefully get a job with a collegiate institution, regardless of whether you have a history with the program or not.
Correct.
So once you get in the door at a place like Western, one of the advantages is, at least there was when I was there, is that the university will help you get additional ratings, correct? Like if you come in with your CFI, then you can use university airplanes to maybe get your double I or maybe get your MEI.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to come in at a time where instructors were starting to be at a bit of a premium. We were fortunate to get jobs when we did, but then a few years into it, this hiring really, really picked up at all these departments. And so you're starting to see instructors be at a premium. So that started to change a little bit. I came in with my initial rating, and through my the standardization training, did a lot of instrument stuff. And it was expected of you that you have your CFII within, I want to say it's a few weeks of being hired, probably a few months if it happens in the winter here in Michigan. But there is a set timeline where they want you to have that. And through the standardization process, you work on a lot of that stuff. So you're paying a really minimal amount for the addition of the CFII. Then going on into the MEI, I was one of the first groups that Western started paying for your standardization in the twin prior to you even having a multi-engine instructor rating. Mm-hmm. And they also have kind of a retention bonus, or they did when I came up, of if you give them, I believe it's 1,500 hours dual given, you had your option of a number of different training benefits. I happened to apply mine to that multi-engine instructor certificate and wound up paying very, very minimal amount for that as well. I think I wound up only paying for the check ride.
That's cool. Yeah.
And the last point that I'll make to that is I was a aviation associate as well. Our collegiate program has a program where for the flight instructors where you can get some full-time benefits. And I was actually fortunate enough to get one of those positions, I want to say in 2014, and started working on a master's degree, which the university paid for in full.
That's cool. That's really cool. And so then for your case, we can kind of wrap your story into this a little bit. You decided that it was something that you enjoyed as much as you do, and you've been able to kind of work through the ranks of that. So how did you transition then from aviation associate to faculty specialist? If education is your passion, how would one follow that path with you?
So the biggest thing I'll say about my situation is it just happened to be right place, right time. I was fortunate enough to be an associate, get the master's degree, which goes a long way in the hiring process of a full-time faculty member. The academic departments put a big weight on graduate level degrees, and I was working on mine at the time, so they assumed that I would continue it if I was awarded a full-time position. But the other part they really look at is industry experience. And again, I was fortunate enough to kind of be right place, right time, and flew the citation for probably 4 years or so before I became full-time. So I had some industry experience in something other than just Western Michigan University. And I think that went a long ways in the personnel committee's decision to bring me on to teach classes, as well as my experience and familiarity with the program. Mm-hmm. So to kind of follow in the becoming a faculty member, my first suggestion to anybody looking to do that would be to get experience, whether that's as a flight instructor, because we put a heavy weight on that as well. Whether it's as a flight instructor, whether you manage a flight school, whether you decide you want to go do some Part 91 stuff, or you want to go to the 121 environment for a while, get some experience that you can bring back to the classroom with you. In some sense or another. Again, flight instruction, Part 91 stuff, Part 121, whatever you can bring back in there is going to be seen as added value to you as an instructor getting into that classroom. So that's kind of the advice I would have for anybody that's hoping to find a position like mine. There are other positions in collegiate aviation. It's not just classroom stuff. We have a lot of people that are involved in research. We have a lot of people that are more heavily involved in administration than I am. We also have people that are full-time flight instructors. We have open positions, as a matter of fact, that are available that you manage the instructors, you manage the students, but you are basically responsible for full-time flight instruction. So it's not just the faculty side of it, which can be grueling at times with having to serve on some committees and things like that. But there are other positions in collegiate aviation.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the sort of less talked about professional routes as a pilot. Everybody talks about the airlines and some of the other things, but there's really good opportunities within the training structure, within the collegiate structure, and I just don't think that people talk about how rewarding they can be. Um, just because I don't know. I really don't know why people don't talk about it
Well,
as
truth
much.
be told, you come into a program like this, and I was a first generation pilot, first generation college student. So you come into a program like this, and it is airlines, airlines, airlines. That's
Hmm.
what's most visible to you as a student here. So all 4 years, I'm thinking airlines, 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 and start to talk to some people about the lifestyle, and start to talk to some people about the and as a matter of fact, I'd done a couple of airline interviews, and it was with a couple of companies that were on a downward trend when we came out of school and are no
Hmm.
longer in existence. So I'm glad I didn't jump on board with them.
Right.
But the what really kind of drew me to it was my experience as a flight instructor going, hey, I really enjoy teaching. It's really rewarding to see that student get back from that check ride with a new certificate and a beaming smile. That's really rewarding for me. How about I do it to 200 students in an intro to aerodynamics class, and when they
Hmm.
pass that class, they're proud of themselves and you can be proud of them. It's a really rewarding thing. But because these programs focus so heavily on airlines, a career in education is very seldom talked about. It's very similar to the corporate environment.
Yeah.
That has more visibility than education on our campus, but it is a far distant backseat to the airlines. So yeah, I think it's just it's there. I think there are people that do spend their careers in collegiate aviation like me, but I think it's such a small percentage that it's really not visible on campus all that
Hmm. And hopefully, maybe something like this might sort of expand the sphere of influence on something like that. I admire what you do for so many students. Because Kyle, I'm not just saying this because we're sitting here, but I remember I flew with you a couple times when we did student swaps or whatever that was, and you really were made for that. I mean, you're the right guy for that role because you're a very talented instructor. So
off. I
it's
appreciate
nice to
that.
see you
That
doing that.
that means a lot, and I hope the students feel the same way.
I think so. I think so. So the sort of the last prong to this conversation, we just talked about the possibility of staying a instructor for a long-term career, and there are plenty of opportunities even outside of the collegiate environment to do that. But we also know that there's a lot of instructors that come in for a little while and then go find other opportunities. And I want to emphasize the fact because in our little world, um, instructors who do it for a few years to go find another opportunity, in the past, that has been almost vilified. And my entire career here at NAFI, and just in general, I have really been trying to push the notion that that's okay. I as long as an instructor comes in and with the time that they spend as instructors, do the best job that they can, look after their students, and make sure that they are being provided with safe, respectful, professional training. If that person decides, hey, I want to go try this other opportunity, or hey, I want to go shift gears into this, I don't see any reason why the instructor community or pilot community should say, oh, well, this person, doesn't belong in this role because they're only going to do it for a couple of years. Um, so with that said, what does it look like in a collegiate environment? And you touched on it a little bit already. For somebody looking to do it for only a few years and then transition into something else, what kind of opportunities are there?
That's the biggest sect of our instructor population right now. And everybody here has seen it for so long that we're keen to the fact that I would 100% agree with you. There is no reason they should be vilified for doing that. Everybody's got to do what's right for them and their families. And moving on to the next bigger and better thing is going to be better for them and their families. So, as long as they put forth that solid effort, they take care of their students, They're professional. There's no reason we don't support them here. We always have and always will continue to do so. If an instructor came into my office today and said, Kyle, I want to go to this corporate department, do you know anybody that I could talk to? I would give them the phone number of a person right now. If they said, Kyle, I want to talk about going to Delta Airlines, I would give them the phone number of a person right now. Again, as long as they're taking care of those students, we are 100% supportive of that. We do find instances where instructors don't take care of their students and decide that something other flying job on the side is more important than their student, and that doesn't tend to work out well. And we are more structured than some other schools in that there's a lot of oversight that happens with instructor and student relationships. We have I forget the exact position, but basically a student success specialist, in which her door is always open down there. The student says, hey, this is just not working out. The instructor is gone 3 of our 4 slots every week because they're flying something else. They walk into that student success office, and sure enough, it becomes an issue, and it gets sorted out one way or another. So we are fully supportive of that type of instructor. We're not going to let people take advantage of students, because I would never say anything bad about instruction as a whole, but I have seen people come to me as students and quite blatantly they were taken advantage of by their instructor when they don't know how to do a weight and balance or performance sheet at 50 hours of flight time, and of that 50 hours, 48 is cross country. That is policed here really, really closely. We have monthly CFI meetings in which training events and training anomalies, I guess I'll call them, are discussed. And so when that kind of thing pops up, which it does from time to time, it's discussed, and we talk about professionalism and why that doesn't work here. And so I think, if you come in with the attitude of, you know what, I'm only going to be here 2 years, but I'm going to give this my best effort. I am going to, take care of these students. These students are my goal. I want to get them through this course efficiently and safely as possible. You're going to be very, very happy at a program like this. You take the alternative route and you might find that you're not as happy. So, it's all, you will get out of a position like this what you put into it. Yeah. If you come in, take care of the students, everything's, done right on your end, we will take care of you here, in that we will assist you in any way possible finding that next step in your career. And one thing we try to instill in these students right now is you're never done being an instructor in this field. In this career path as a pilot, you are never done being an instructor. Whether that is serving as a training captain, or whether that's just being a captain and having somebody junior to you sitting next to you, everything you do is on display for that. And you will learn something from anybody. It's up to you to determine what is right and what is wrong and sift through that information. So you are always out there on display as an instructor, even when you take that next step, even if you don't ever take that official training captain moniker, and it's more or less just a Part 91 position or something like that, where you're captain and you've got somebody throwing gear to the next seat of you, to the seat right of you. I was fortunate enough to come up and do Part 91 operations with 2 guys that were just phenomenal instructors. I mean, they were retired corporate pilots, thousands of hours of experience. They wanted to teach a young person how to fly that airplane. And so every flight was a learning experience for me. And I really took that to heart, sitting in the left seat now, of, hey, when I've got somebody sitting next to me, I'm always teaching. They're always absorbing something from me. So we try really hard here to make that clear to our students, or at least I do when I'm working with my multi-engine students and multi-engine instructors, is, your students are watching you almost every minute, every second that they are around you, and so you'll take that to the rest of your career, whether it's the next step is the airlines, corporate environment, education, whatever it is. They will watch that, and they are learning from you. Whether you want to be an instructor or not, you have that I guess probably not the right word or best choice of words, but you have that burden that you are the teacher there. So
both in the
I
air
think
and on the ground.
exactly. So I think we do a pretty good job of instilling good habits here, and that we demand a fair amount from our instructors from a professionalism standpoint. And when they aren't professional, it's addressed. But I think that carries them well into the next phases of their career, which again, we are always supportive of.
Any sort of final thoughts? Any other points that you want to mention, either about WMU specifically or just the collegiate environment in general?
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of good stuff there for prospective students, prospective instructors, people that may be looking to get into academics. I would invite anybody that has any questions to look me up on the NAFI website. I'm sure I'm listed there as I'm a member, and certainly get in touch if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Again, whether that's from students, prospective instructors, or somebody that's looking to get into maybe a full-time position as a faculty member at the college.
So final question is, if I'm an instructor and I don't work for Western, are you hiring?
From a part-time instructor position? Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I believe their next hire date or next hire class is going to be in November is what I heard rumor of. I think our director of standards has been running classes about every 4 months, it seems like.
And how does one apply?
How does one apply? You would go to the College of Aviation website, and on the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll find I believe there's a tab for prospective for prospective instructors.
Wonderful. So you heard it, folks. If you don't have a flight instructing job and you're looking for a great place to go, Western Michigan in Battle Creek would be a great place. Go to the website, and I'll put it in the show notes so that you can easily find it and apply that way. So, Kyle, with that, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing sort of your pathway and your thoughts. And we'll talk to you soon.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me on.